I want to start off with Attorney Crump. How on God's earth did you first become aware of this story? Because it is not what I expected. It's not like Star Trek. It's Nichelle and what she did. And you don't strike me as a person who would be reading books, that many books about celebrities. So how did you come across this story and then decide to do it?
Well, Nat, first of all, we're honored to talk with you in the People's Film Festival. Todd Thompson and our whole team are just very proud of this film, and for you allowing it to have an audience with the People's Film Festival really pays the highest amount of respect to Nichelle Nichols, who is just incredible. She is an incredible human being. How I got involved with this project is Todd and one of our co-producers, David Teak, who actually is an adjunct professor and does work with Florida A&M University, which is the leading historically Black college and university in the state of Florida, which is in my hometown of Tallahassee. He came and said, he was at a rally, a social justice rally, and David is a middle-aged white man, and he said, I want to talk to you about something, Ben Crump. And, you know, we had a rally marching, screaming for justice, and he has a serious look. I want to talk to you about something. And I said, well, okay. I gave him my card, and I said, we'll talk when we get a chance. And obviously, I'm super busy, so a couple of weeks went by. We kept trying to make it work. And then finally, we had an opportunity to sit down, and he showed me this packet about Nichelle Nichols, the actress who I knew from Star Trek. All of us African Americans, I obviously knew who Nichelle was because she was one of the first Black actresses to be on a primetime television show. And so it was kind of profound when this middle-aged white man started talking to me about Nichelle Nichols. And then he really said, but she was more than just a civil rights groundbreaker on TV. She really was a civil rights trailblazer in the recruitment of minorities and women into the space program. I mean, she doesn't get her credit for being a civil rights leader. And boy, that's when he had my attention then, because I always said that, as Dr. King say, we all have a role to play in the struggle for civil and human rights and equality for all people. We're not asking for everybody to be on the front line with me and Reverend Al and Black Lives Matter, but there's a role to play. And this fit perfect what we were saying about everybody has a role to play. And then I met the great Todd Thompson, and he kind of told me his vision and the stuff that we wanted to interject into the film about civil rights. And they wanted to have somebody with authenticity in this civil rights world who could help them write the civil rights parts of the film. And I then came on and became a producer, and Todd has, I mean, I want to take credit for a lot of it. I offered here and there stuff about civil rights from my perspective as a civil rights lawyer, but it really was Todd and David and Tim. Those guys rewrote, scripted, and they tried to make Nichelle be seen by everybody, Black, white, brown, young, old, as a person that you could relate to. She was just a person who wanted to make the world better for everybody. And that signature line, and then I shut up, when she was speaking in front of NASA, and she said, where are my people? Now, I was sold at that point, where are my people? Because that's what we're fighting for today with Black Lives Matter.
Can you ask for a better producing partner than this guy, huh?
No, but I don't think you could have had a better subject than Nichelle Nichols. And the job you guys did was really, really extraordinary. I mean, you brought it along from the beginning. I don't want to give it away because we're not going to show it, but they say start with the bang, end with the boom. The ending, the way you guys ended it was just exquisite. I mean, just exquisite. It was a beautiful, beautiful work. How long were you working on it, and how did you decide to get involved in this? And did you have a vision for it from the beginning? Did it develop along the way? Help me understand your process.
You take that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a long process. It evolved over time. Dave Teague, again, he and Tim Franta are two producing partners. They're friends and associates. They do a lot of work together out at Kennedy Space Center, and both on the technological and the education side of things. They both called me one day, and really it was funny. They didn't ask me if I was interested in doing the movie. They said, we're doing a movie. So like I kind of just got recruited immediately. But you know, it was a very easy sell because, you know, to Ben's point, not only is Nichelle an amazing woman, but her story just, I mean, you'd be a fool not to want to tell and preserve that story for future generations. I mean, it's just an amazing trailblazing effort that, you know, and she'll tell you herself. I mean, she had a hand in it. She was obviously the subject of the film, but you know, she had a lot of help along the way. And you know, starting with the great and late Dr. Martin Luther King. I mean, if it wasn't for him, you know, she would have quit. She would have left Star Trek for a couple different reasons after the first season. So, you know, I got that phone call. I believe it was November of 2014, and by late summer, early fall of 2015, we were on our way to Hollywood, so to speak, and interviewed Nichelle. We spent about a week with her at her home and really got to know her and did our first round of interviews that week. And I just knew right away we had something special. I mean, it was just an amazing story. And, you know, when you think about royalty and Hollywood royalty, I mean, she is the epitome of that. She just, I mean, who she is inside and out comes out in this film. And that truly is who she is as a person. I mean, inside and out. So I'm really proud of that we captured that.
You guys interjected something sort of movie magic into the whole flow of it. And I remember when it started off very Star Trekky, and then we got to the point where she became introduced to NASA. And you showed the stars, and you had her voice, and she was talking. And one thing I was aware of as she was describing this, and the imagery was going, was that she had a renewed sense of wonder. That is not something that we African Americans really are privy to. I mean, we are intelligent, we are artistic, but that sense of being blown away, that sense of wonder, that sense of something bigger than you is not something readily accessible to most Black young people growing up. And you guys really, really captured that. You know, I didn't get a sense of wonder until I was in my 40s and I was in St. Kitts zip gliding, you know, and looking down, flying through the air, looking down at the trees. And you really captured it. How did your team come together? And were you aware of the magic that you guys were making?
I'll jump in real quick because I specifically remember a moment in her house. It must have been like the second or third day we were there filming, and you know, you're sitting behind the monitor, you're taking it all in, you're looking at things creatively the whole time you're directing. You're also looking, you know, forward thinking about, you know, where you want to go from here with the questions, this and that. But there was something she said that literally like made the hair on my arm stand up, and like without even knowing how this film editorially was going to come together. I mean, we had a good idea how we were going to piece it together, but without even knowing, you know, what the final product was going to look like, these hairs on my arm stand up, and like something told me like, what she just said is the blueprint for all humankind. Like this is the blueprint for moving forward. And it was extremely simple, nothing complex about it. It was just a message of love and caring and lifting each other up sort of message, if you will. I mean, I'm butchering how she said it, of course, but the essence of what she said just made the hair on my arm stand up. And I just knew right then and there that, we absolutely had something. If I didn't know before, I definitely knew it there. That's for sure.
Nat, to add on to what Tim said, to add on to what Todd said. I ain't gonna say that joke. Y'all all look.
We're gonna have a drink after that.
We have to take it out.
Yeah, we'll take that out. No, Todd, I'm thinking about Tim. Tim was so special to this project. Everybody was very special. David, Tim, Vince, Greg, all the producing partners were incredible. But Nat, there was one thing she said, and it was just profound to me. You're talking about something to just make your mind be stretched. She said when she was talking to NASA and while she was doing Star Trek, they said you had all this great diversity on Star Trek, what the future would be like in space. She said, well, we need to also fight for equality right here on Earth. And you said, yeah, it's one thing to fantasize about a more equitable world in space in the future, which was important what she did, because she said, where are my people for the future in space? But then she said, but what about now? Why aren't there women and minorities astronauts today? And she literally, and Todd just demonstrates it incredibly in the film, when she took the assignment from NASA, how vigilant, how committed, how dogmatic she was, that she was going to prove that Black people, Asian people, Hispanic people, women were just as qualified to be astronauts and participate in the space program as the All-White Boys Club. And I just thought that was something on another level that in the world today, we need to see this film.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me, like, how God works in mysterious ways, because you think about, like, and anyone in the world, he chose her, this woman who plays a role on a television show that happens to be all about diversity, but disguised in some sort of space fantasy. He chose someone like that to bring this opportunity to, because who better would be able to visualize and understand, what it's really all about, not scripted on television, but in real life. So, you got folks out there, marching and standing up for human rights all over the world. And yet it took this one woman in 4 short months, to make such a profound impact on the space program, but in reality on the entire world, because that's what this is about. And it just amazes me, like, how that worked out, like the mastermind behind that. She was the perfect person for that role.
And that she is so beautiful, and she's intelligent and just engaging. And on top of all of that, she has convictions for all people to have civil rights and equal rights. And I mean, you just like, wow. And Michelle Nichols, you're as intelligent as you are beautiful, but what's more impressive is you are just as vigilant about Todd's children, Ben's children, Nat's children, having a place on this earth that is equal to everybody else. And you don't find people like that often.
Yeah.
The whole package.
No, go on.
No, she's the total package. And Todd, I have to say this. I was still riveted by how incredibly beautiful she was even today. I
Yeah.
mean, she is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you watch the trailer or see her for the first time in the movie, I mean, she's just so regal and so elegant and just, she almost radiates. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, that goes back to that ending scene. I'm gonna have to give her a nickname like Fancy because Attorney Crump understands what I'm talking about when I say fancy.
I do.
Her life. Were you aware of the intricate journey that she took just to get to the Star Trek place? Because in the film, you document her life beginning as a dancer and a 14-year-old girl getting her first shot. And she goes from that into a singer. I don't want to give too much of it away, but she had an extraordinary life, an artistic life, a rich life. And God seemed to just take every path and point her in another direction. And each direction he pointed her into, she just became more proficient and more successful at it. Were you aware of this going into this, or did you become aware of these things as you got into it?
Well, I mean, we certainly did our research about her going into the project, but we knew, what we discovered, I guess, was what an important part of the story that was, because, what we don't do in the film is, we don't get into her personal life, who she was married to, her family life. I mean, while that's certainly important and interesting, what drives the story is, what her mission on this planet was. And so, while we knew she was a singer and a dancer going into it, and we knew she got her start in television, I mean, those are all important elements, because as you come to find out later, those were elements those were desires and talents she had that were driving her to quit Star Trek after the first season, when she was no longer being challenged as an actress, on the bridge. She got, as she said, as it says in the film, she got these wonderful scripts, but by the time it got down to shooting, it was always diminished to like, yes, captain, no, captain. And, for a professional actress, first of all, let alone a singer dancer, I mean, that's gets to be pretty old, no matter how glamorous it is to be on TV. But so after the first season, I think that led to her wanting to leave. And so, it's important to set that up in the first act of the film to show, what her roots were, where she came from, what her true loves were, and where her talents really lied, which, led her to want to go back to her roots and pursue that by leaving Star Trek. And then that just plays into, the incredible vision that Dr. King had to seek her out and, be smart enough to know that she was going to quit. If she had actually already resigned, he knew that, and to seek her out and tell her and urge her not to, actually order her not to quit. I mean, he had the foresight to know what she was really doing at the end of the day. The seed she was planting by just being on TV and having a presence on the bridge in a leadership role, amongst a Russian and amongst an Asian and a Caucasian and alien. And so it's like, it was just incredible vision on Dr. King's part that he took the time to seek her out and make sure she didn't quit, regardless of her personal desires and passions.
Yeah. And that was profound. The fact that he said, you represent the future of what our people are marching and fighting for. I mean, a communications engineer in NASA. I mean, she was number 3 in control. So it really was something to behold when Dr. King said that. You represent an image for our children that's not a maid, not a slave, but you're somebody who we want to become.
Right. Were you, when did you become aware of her historical significance? Obviously, you became aware of this as the story unfolded and the film unfolded, and you became cognizant of a whole lot of things. Your career has been extraordinary. Any attorney in the world would love to have Benjamin Crump's body of work in their briefcase. And then you come to Nichelle Nichols, and somewhere along the line, you understood that you were working not just with a story and an actress, but actual a piece of relevant history that has to be told. When did you become aware of this? And
Nat, a lot of it came from reading what Todd and them had presented to me. Obviously, everybody knew about the first interracial kiss on primetime television, but if you ended her story there, you just would miss so much of it, because that's what many people know. She was the black woman on Star Trek. They had the first interracial kiss, and we know that. But what you don't know is the historical relevance when you start talking about Ronald McNair, Sally Ride, all those first minority and women astronauts. Todd, I'm sure, will agree with me. Who knows when that would have happened had it not been for Nichelle Nichols pushing the envelope, making that proclamation, "Where are my people?" It was a question, but it was a statement. And so that really is when I kind of became aware that, wow, she's bigger than I ever fathomed. I mean, really. That's why
you have to understand.
I'll say this, Todd. That's why I want so badly for so many people to see this story, and preferably where she can get her roses while she's still with us here on Earth. I'm sorry, Todd.
No, that's very important as well. Yeah. No, I was just going to echo what Ben said, and what makes it even more amazing is if you look back in your history, and it's a whole other story to tell, but there were other candidates, African-American test pilots that, were identified that would qualify to become astronauts. And they were, politically and socially forced out in a lot of ways. So the fact that, she came along at the right time with the right voice in the right place in the right manner to accomplish what she did, it really broke down a wall that had been built up for years and years and years.
You injected so much emotional commitment in the telling of this story, that this is not just a facts-oriented documentary. You actually did a lot of things. You actually injected a lot of emotional commitment into the story itself. One of the most poignant scenes was the 1987 space flight that took the lives of some astronauts. And that scene was Oscar-worthy. Just that scene.
Tell your friends.
Well, they should know, but I'm telling them now, and I'll tell them again and again and again. I recommend this film to everyone, especially people who are a little short on believing in their own dynamism and their own dreams. I would recommend everyone see this film. This is an incredible film. But shooting that scene, what was it like? Because it was a very, very emotional scene.
Yeah, what happened was we actually had to turn the cameras off, and we broke for lunch shortly thereafter. But I had a couple moments there where I thought, oh my God, we're done for the day, because and it's amazing because we're, what was that, 30, 40 years. It's been a long time since that tragedy,
Right.
and it's still, all these emotions erupted up inside of her as if it happened last week. And her memory and recollection of it were crystal clear. What she was doing that morning, who was visiting her house that day. She had a guest staying over. She went out for a morning run, and so when she told that story, I mean, I knew in my mind how I was going to shoot it, what I was going to do to try to make it come to life in the way that you see it now. But yeah, we had to shut down because she was, very, very torn up about it. So,
And she knew most of those individuals because she had personally recruited them. I mean, a lot of people did not believe NASA really was going to have minorities in their all-white boys club that was, if you look at the movie, The Right Stuff. And so, it was very personal to her. And Todd does such an amazing job because you get that sense of just how connected they were. And I agree with you, Nate. It is Oscar worthy.
and she was very close with Judy Resnick. I mean, they formed a really close friendship over the years. And so it wasn't just about, going on this 4-month recruiting mission and then, closing the books. I mean, she maintained a personal relationship with a lot of these astronauts, and obviously an ongoing working relationship with NASA. So, realistically, her 4-month contract lasted her whole life, really. To this day, she's still involved with NASA in many ways.
You made mention of the kiss. Now, let me put this in a little context. Star Trek came out in 1966, and I turned 15 in the summer of '66, which means that I was 14 when Star Trek came out. And I'm born and raised in Harlem. So the fact that there was a dynamic, independent, intelligent Black woman that was on the air didn't ring that special in my mind because I was surrounded by it. The kiss didn't register that big in my mind because it was an alien force forcing them together. It wasn't a real romantic kiss. So my thoughts about Nichelle Nichols all revolved around how classy, how beautiful, how well she represented herself in Star Trek. I had no knowledge of the NASA thing, and I make it my business to know stuff like that. So I know that if I didn't know, a lot of people didn't know. Yeah. You not only brought this to the forefront, you made it in such a way where it's palatable, easy to watch for many generations, not, old Star Trek heads, but a lot of young people. And a lot of our young people need, like I said, they need to understand that, first of all, they are qualified and that it's good for them to seek out their dreams, that there is a place in the world for young Black people, besides just being correction officer or, something like that. You can dream, you can dream. Attorney Crump.
Yeah, if I could say this, and I know they may pull me away, and I apologize, Mr. Wood. The thing about this whole film, not just the kiss, as a civil rights lawyer, what we try to do is engage people to open their minds. And oftentimes, I think it is more effective to not force it on people, but just to invite them to have a conversation. Let's not talk at each other, let's talk to one another. I think it's so great about the direction of this film. It doesn't force feed civil rights on you. It just, let's have coffee and talk about, civil rights, humanity for all people. And that's what I think Todd did so incredibly well. After I sat back and I watched it again with my family at a screening, we were putting so much into your subconscious mind, but it was never forced. It was coming from Nichelle Nichols, as you said, this highly intelligent, very attractive, very engaging woman talking about very, very serious issues. I'm talking about gender equality, racial equality, equal pay, all these type of things kind of been subtly just put in there. The fact that as a black woman, they were not giving her the same lines. And now, we're in Hollywood now talking about, you got to have pay equally. Well, Todd and the writers, David and Tim and everybody, it was very subtle. And when you leave this film, you're blown away. And it take a couple of days, I think, for you to realize why you're so blown away. And that is the just genius of Todd Thompson.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was genius. It was genius. You really did. I'm a little jealous because
Sunburned, but I'm blushing at the same time.
You done real good.
Well, I approached it. I mean, directorially, we all grew up with documentaries. Documentaries when I was going to school, you guys too. It's like, it's not, I hate to use the word boring, but it's educational, and it's like it's meant to teach you. And documentaries have just evolved over the years, and have become, for me anyways, some of my more favorite genre of film is a documentary these days. Probably just because of the lack of content on the other side of the table, but. I love good documentaries, but I definitely approached this. There were a couple things, when we talked about this film. Obviously, when we first started off, I naturally said, "Oh, we're going to make a Star Trek film," but you quickly realize, no, this really has nothing to do with Star Trek. This is a much bigger, higher purpose. And then I also directorially didn't want to educate as much as I wanted to entertain, because I knew through the entertaining, you would get the message, to Ben's point, more than if we were to open up a book and read you a chapter. You're gonna ingest it differently, by being entertained by it. And the story's just naturally entertaining to begin with, but how it's presented and the way it was cut together and the beats along the way, the story beats, if you will, they were all very carefully calculated to take you on this journey with her, in a very nonlinear fashion, if you will. And because to your point, Nat, a lot of people don't know, the story. They think of Nichelle as Lieutenant Uhura or a singer or a dancer, whatever, however you want to envision her. But yeah, it was a very deliberate effort to, entertain you first and foremost, because through that, I think the message will resonate even stronger.
You're debuting this film in a time where people are very polarized. And Lieutenant Uhura was crafted in a time where people were very polarized. And what is interesting about this film is that through all of the difficulties that they laid at her feet, all the challenges, she did not become bitter and found a way to accomplish things, not through hate or anger, but actually by bringing people together and creating opportunity for a lot of people who would otherwise be at each other's throat. I mean, it's not just an issue of race, it's an issue of gender and gender identity and woman and man and black and white and who got and who doesn't. You really put this together in such a way that it really flowed. And it made sense. It wasn't like real talky like a documentary. How did you come across this process? Because this process is very unique. This is not a film that's just muscle memory.
Well, you said something kind of important there. I mean, you talked about this film taking place during a time when, things were difficult, and then you talked about Star Trek back in a time when things were difficult. And what you just said was, things really haven't changed even to this day. I mean, we're still talking about these same old issues, which are getting to be pretty old and tired. I mean, come on already. It's like, what's the deal? I'm one of my favorite lines from the movie. I hate to admit it. I love to admit it, but it's not a Nichelle line. It's by Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he says it plain and simple. When do you really know that you've changed? And when you know you've changed is when you can't imagine life any other way. So if Ben and I can make a film that takes you one more step up that ladder, you know, towards that evolution, whatever you want to call it. I mean, that's what we want to do. I mean, we're working on a project right now that, you know, takes place in the late 50s, early 60s, and it's both a documentary series and a feature film. And we're going to approach it very much the same way, because it involves very much the same issues. And yet, what's cool about this story, this new story we're telling, is it was people that found success and ways to prosper during a time when they were not allowed to. So they thought out of the box. They found a different way. So it's a celebratory story during a time of the 60s, Jim Crow South and segregation and whatnot, and racism. And so, you know, I think the more stories that get told this way, I think that's what will eventually bring about change. And it's really the same exact formula, believe it or not, that Dr. King was trying to get Nichelle to understand. You know, just by being present, by making it accessible and out there for people to see, it just becomes eventually part of our conscious and reality. And then that's when we change, because we can't think of it any other way. It's around us.
You guys did an extraordinary job. It's an extraordinary film. I would be derelict if I didn't get you to say when we can see this film, and who picked it up, and is it a streaming service? What film festival? How do we see this thing? How do we get our children and grandchildren to see this thing?
You got to have Ben's personal number. You got to.
No problem. I can do that.
Well, it's slated for an early 2021 release. It's a company called Shout Factory picked it up. We're super excited about it. We're just in the early stages of putting it all together with them right now, and so we can't say too much about it at this point. But it will be coming out in 2021, from what we're being told. And Ben, you can chime in here too. But theatrically, it'll be available streaming, transactional video, you know, renting and purchasing, all the above, really. So we're super excited about it. And again, it's important that it gets that kind of coverage and exposure, because that's how I think the world's going to change.
Yep, and I have to go, but it's going to be everywhere, Nat, because we want everybody to see this film. Everybody, but really the young people. We want everybody to see it. Thank you, Nat, again for the People's Film Festival. It matters.
Thank you very much. And Todd, you make sure you stay close to Benjamin Crump, because we're gonna need a documentary about him before it's all over. The way he's going, he's like blazing a trail nobody can follow. Thank you guys so much.
Todd, thank you, brother. Thank you. Now, I look forward when I'm in New York to visiting with you all.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much for everything. Thanks for everything you do.
Hey, we're fighting for all our children. Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right, guys.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nat. Talk to you soon.
All right. You got it.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.